Hello Frizzle fans! At the time of recording this, I have been reviewing books on the internet publicly for about 600 days. And this was going to start out as like a side hobby. I did not expect me to still be doing it 6 months later, legitimately, and then I fell in love with it, and now it has kind of become like an integral part of my life. If I were to make a list of like the 10 most important things in my life, we would have the classically important things, you know, my family, my religion, my work, soy sauce, spreadsheets, and also this YouTube channel, because I just absolutely adore reading books, reviewing books, making these videos. It's so fun, and it has taken over my life to the point where now if people ask, I say I'm a semi-professional book reviewer. I don't think I can say professional because I'm not like making money off of it, but I am obsessed and dedicated to the level where I think I can say semi-professional. I kind of want to look at my philosophy on reviewing books, all the things I've learned, what the heck do my star ratings mean, and any other things I want to talk about. First, easy thing, star ratings. Books are traditionally rated on a 5-star scale, mostly just because, like, Goodreads. And at the very beginning, I wasn't into using Goodreads or rating books. And if you want to follow my reviews on Goodreads, you can find that link in the footnotes along with links to everything else I'm going to mention in this video. The thing that sold me finally on using Goodreads is I was reading this book series, and when I got to the end of it, I thought, I love this series. This was the Dresden Files series. And then I thought, what did I think of book 1? And it had been such a blur, and I hadn't taken any notes, and I was thinking, was book 1 really as good as I'm remembering, or is it just colored? But then, thankfully, I had texted one of my friends as soon as I had finished the book with a little review of the book and what I thought. And I just loved rereading those texts so much that I realized the value of Goodreads for me was being able to jot down my quick first impressions of a book and just as a record of recommendations for other people. So then, of course, I had to figure out what the different stars meant to me. What's the difference between a 5-star book and a 2-star book? So this is the scale that I personally use. A 1-star means I really didn't like this book, would not recommend it, oftentimes didn't even bother finishing it. It's just, you know, 1 star, no. 2 stars means I did actually finish this book, but kind of wished I hadn't bothered. And then I get to the end of the book and I think, well, that was a waste of my time. But I can also acknowledge that it does have some good points, it's not quite a 1 star, and someone else is gonna like it. 3-star is an average book. It's good, I enjoyed reading it, I'm glad I picked it up. Some 3 stars are good enough to continue reading on with a series, and then the lower end of 3-star is I am not going to continue on reading the series. 4 stars is I loved this book. And I can see myself rereading it one day because I love rereading books. So if, when I finish a book, I still have the urge to read it again, that's a big indicator for me that this is an awesome book. And then 5 stars is, this book is an absolute masterpiece, one of my new favorites. Yes, I love it so much, and as soon as I finished reading it, I was like, I want to read this book again. Sometimes I actually follow on with that instinct, and sometimes I am too busy to actually follow on with that instinct, but it was there. This is a book that I can see myself reading again and again and again for years, and I love it and I want to talk about it for hours. And if you have the misfortune of being my roommate, then you will hear me talk about it for hours. But you guys, fantastic Frizzle viewers, only get it for a few minutes in these videos. My average star rating on Goodreads is right now a 3.47, which I'm pretty happy with because it is skewing a little bit positive, but also a 5-star still like really means something, you know? I'm not just giving them out willy-nilly. When I first started out reviewing books, one of the hardest things was just finding things to talk about in a book review. Like, I know I love to talk about books, but then when you're preparing the review, what do you talk about? And I've slowly assembled a list of potential topics and questions, which is very long, and you can find that on my blog, linked in the footnotes. But the main elements of my reviews are these sections. First, my reactions to the book. What were my favorite parts? What were my least favorite parts? How could this book in general be improved? How did my opinions change as the book went on? Next category is plot quality. So this is things like the pacing, the structure, the turning point, the climax. Was it confusing? Was it too predictable? How was the world building? How was the tone of the book? Next section is the themes. What was this book about? How did symbols help make that meaning? What did I learn while reading this book, and what did maybe the characters learn while going through the events of the book? And then character quality. Do they actually have those arcs? Do they have motivations? Do they have relationships? How do we learn about them? And this list of topics is one that I've added to and taken questions off of that I didn't really use that often so many times over the past year and a half. It's something that I'm always playing with, is what are the kind of things that I like to talk about when I'm reviewing a book? And what are the kind of things that I think are important to discuss when reviewing a book? So that's going to vary from person to person, but I really want to put this list out there because this is exactly the kind of list that I was looking for when I started out and really struggled to find. Next question, how do you do a book review? When I first started out, this was a really hard question to answer, and I did struggle with this a little bit. Because if you Google how to review a book, there are many awesome articles written about it. But most of those articles are like, do your best, talk about the book in a good way. And to me, that wasn't super helpful information because I already knew that. I was asking like, no, but how do you make the best video? And that took some more trial and error and study, and here are some of my conclusions. It is split into 4 main sections. 1, we've got your hook. This is your initial thoughts on the book. Quick summary of if you liked it, if you didn't, and a little bit of reason why. This is going to hook your reader to tie them through the most boring and also somehow the most important part of your review, which is step 2, a little plot summary. Because for the people who haven't read the book, they're gonna need a little bit of plot summary, but also plot summary is just gonna be boring for everyone. You can do it in a more engaging way just through your own personal voice, but no matter how you slice and dice it, like, this is just going to be the most boring part of the entire review. But because you've already engaged your audience by giving them that little hint of your opinions on the book, that gives them the better context to both pay attention to and process the summary of the book. And I would say keep the summary to a minimum. Only summarize the very most important parts of the book and the parts that you will need for your stage 3 of this book review, which is all of your messy thoughts. Though you should organize them in at least a little bit of way, which I'll get to in a minute. But this is the rest of your book review. Because they now have the context of the plot summary, you can get into more details talking about specific characters and events, and really proving your point of why does this book deserve the initial review that you gave it at the beginning. And then stage 4 is just your conclusion. Maybe summarizing your points a little bit, giving it a star rating, whatever you want to do there. So then in stage 3, how do you structure this? And this is the hardest part. But I would say the secret here is that you want to make your points feel like they are their own story. So what does that mean? Instead of your points just being like characters this, plot this, themes this, and just feeling like a list of things that you're saying, you want to make them seem like they connect, or maybe actually connect, where you put your points in an order so that they are building on each other. Because you've talked about the characters, then your discussion of themes is richer because you can refer to things that you've already discussed. And that gives the audience more engagement because as they watch the video, they are slowly becoming more of an expert on your topic because you're starting out with the beginner points and moving on to the expert points and slowly building on each other. I'm also always trying to get the right kind of tone for my reviews. I want them exciting and emotional because I think that's what makes videos often entertaining, and that's really the value of getting a book review from a person and not just looking at the average score on Goodreads, because you're getting their personal opinions and emotions and their subjective experience of reading the books. So I want to put as much enthusiasm and passion into these as possible. But like I said, I really value structure. I like things to feel like they are organized. So usually my videos will be highly outlined, but not scripted. But in the end, book reviewing is just hard. And my best tips for becoming a better book reviewer is 1, just practicing. I have learned so much about my taste in books over the last 600 days than all the previous days of my life, just because I have to justify why I like a book in detail. And the other thing I would recommend to do is just learning more about how to write stories. Even if you're not interested in being a writer yourself, still learning that writing theory is really good. And I'll link some playlists down below where I think you can really learn some awesome writing lessons. So what have I learned about my own book taste in the last 600 days of reviewing books semi-professionally? I know I sound so pretentious saying that, but I own it, man. This is my semi-profession. And For me, I've learned how incredibly important themes are. If the book doesn't have strong themes, or if it's not super coherent of like what lessons the characters are learning and the narrative is supporting, I have a harder time engaging with it on an emotional level. In connection with that, the characters have to have character arcs that usually connect in with those themes. I want to see the characters grow and change and just be strong and detailed in that way. I need them to have goals and motivations that they either meet or don't meet and have ramifications because of that. And I've learned that I really like highly structured plots. I like the scenes to all do something for the narrative and be in a specific order because they need to be in that order. I just like books that feel very intentional about all that. And if a book isn't highly structured, I'm usually very bored with it. And I've also learned the kind of things that other people often care about, that to me, I'm like, whatever, I don't care. Like good prose. People often praise books like, wow, it was so poetic and beautiful. And I'm like, I don't really care. Like, it can just be totally plain language or totally flowery language, and either way, it doesn't really affect my enjoyment level of the book. And in connection with that, there are lots of people who read for like certain vibes. Like, this is the perfect like cozy book, or the perfect winter book, or the perfect heist novel, and I also don't care about that. I'm more looking for the quality than the mood vibes of a book. But I also acknowledge that those things are important to other people, and this is just my own personal opinion, that as I've analyzed books and analyzed my analysis of books, I've realized that these are things that I just don't care either way. I am very grateful to the past version of myself who decided to start reviewing books in a more formal way here on YouTube, because it's been so much fun and such a good learning experience, and I have just loved every video. Though, in retrospect, I don't love all my videos. I have gotten better with time, I think. And I hope this rant and all of these tips can help you, someone out there who is trying to review books as well. And please let me know, how do you like to review books? What are your opinions on what makes a good book review versus a bad book review? Let's start a discussion going here. If you made it to the end of the video, how about you comment with a checkmark emoji? And thank you for watching.